WSOU 89.5 FM, the loudest rock. I'm Valentino, and I'm joined today with Joe from Rise Against. How you doing today, Joe?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining. Super excited to have you on the show, have you on air. Your brand new record, No Regeneration, available now. How are you feeling?
Amazing. It feels so good to get new music out into the world, especially music we've been sitting on since for a year and a half, basically. Yeah, we're excited to play these new songs live. We're excited to actually play live. As as the world moves forward, it'll be like a learning curve for sure. Like once, like that first couple of days out on tour is going to be a little weird and maybe unnerving a little bit, but it'll smooth out.
That was actually one of my first questions I wanted to ask you. With like writing a record in the pandemic, you've had to sit on these songs for a while. Like playing them live, is that going to be almost a weird, because you were in a very different headspace when you wrote those songs like a year ago,
Well, it's weird. It's almost like we just got done writing the record and tracking everything right before the pandemic hit. So it's like, yeah, everything was on pause for a year and a half, but we've rehearsed a couple of times, so far, and everything still seems like pretty fresh. And we just went on pause, right, for a year and a half. So we picked up right where we left off, and everything still seems pretty awesome. It is weird though to take that break and to just be in a bubble for a year and a half. But everyone, I know the whole world's going through it, so it's tough on everyone.
Yeah, I know some bands had to take like a 6-month gap or something between tours, but it's pretty much unheard of a year and a half of just like nothing. No, it just complete almost silence. That's got to be hard for an artist, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, and we haven't been home this long probably in since we started the band in 20 years ago. So it's definitely been like a little bit of soul searching, like who am I as a person, without playing music. Like it was pretty nuts. Like I was very antsy pacing around my house, but at least I was there for my children to help them with e-learning, and that was a challenge in of itself.
Yeah, definitely. I can imagine like almost going from like, like touring, arenas around the world, and then just to be trapped in your house for a week, just kind of like, playing teacher. That's got to be a very different mindset for you.
Yeah, it is. You have to like switch the gears very quickly, and learn patience, because my kids are 12, 10, and 8, and my 8-year-old, he couldn't sit in a chair in front of a Zoom class longer than 10 minutes, and he's up running around. So it was hard. I mean, the teachers had a rough time, rightfully so. Children had a hard time adapting, and then the parents, who are like, most parents are not teachers, so it's hard to kind of put yourself in that frame of mind. Like, I have a new respect for teachers.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, without further ado, I'm going to dive into the new record, No Regeneration. We've been playing the songs at WSOU, and furthermore, on a personal note, it's definitely contender for Album of the Year. This record absolutely rips.
Thanks.
Tell me a little bit about like that aha moment. When you're writing this record, when was this moment you felt, okay, the record's done? Like we have it, that lightning in a bottle kind of thing.
I think it was, we had gotten to writing 20 songs, and then Tim just kind of like picks a song and works on the lyrics, and then like knocks it out, right? So we just kind of keep going down the list, but he always picks the songs that kind of resonate the most with him while he's writing lyrics. And the grouping of songs that we stopped at 16, and he just felt like that was it. He was tapped out for lyrics. The other 3 or 4 songs that we didn't finish, they're probably not as good as the others. But I think after hearing him sing the numbers, then I was like, okay, like this record's gonna kick ass. Like the numbers, musically, it was my favorite piece of music that I wrote. And then hearing his vocal on top of it, it really like it made it seem like it's I guess it's tough to be a band for 20 years and to keep things fresh, because every band thinks they're still like sounding fresh, but maybe fans like pick up on it. Like this song in particular, I was like, everyone's gonna fucking love this song. Like, so I was, yeah, the numbers did it for me.
I am so happy to hear you say that. The Numbers is actually one of the songs we have in new music right now, because I'll never forget the first time I heard that song. I also had the same like feeling. I was like, oh, this record's gonna like rip. This record's gonna be awesome. I just knew in that moment, and that's so cool to hear from the artist perspective that you also had the same experience with the exact same song.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome.
And now another thing I wanted to ask about with the record, obviously Broken Dreams Incorporated was the technical first single you released on the Dark Knight soundtrack. What made you put that on the record? Was it written for the Dark Knight soundtrack, or was it written for No Regeneration?
No, yeah, it was written for No Regeneration, and Tyler Perry. No, I'm sorry, Tyler Bates. Tyler
Oh,
Perry,
good.
completely different.
Oh,
Uh,
good. It's got a really
that's
cool guest vocal
amazing.
on the record. Yeah, Tyler
Yeah,
Perry.
totally. I love that I did. Oh man. Yeah, Tyler Bates. He handpicked that song. I think we gave him like 3 or 4 songs from No Regeneration to pick from to put on the soundtrack for Dark Knights because he was curating the soundtrack. And that song was, it was like a no-brainer for him. He's like, the song definitely makes sense for the theme of, the Dark Knight series. And that song, that song is definitely a nod to our older influences, and as far as musically speaking, and it's just kind of in your face and super raw, so I'm really glad that was kind of like first out of the gate, for our at least our longtime fans to hear, like I was kind of excited for people to check it out. But yeah, like so he definitely handpicked that song.
It's so cool because you're right. I could almost hear Broken Dreams Inc. like on, that The Sufferer and the Witness, or on Siren
Yeah.
Song in the Culture. Like it feels like it fits in that, which is so cool.
Nice.
Another question, diving in, obviously, not so much related to the new record, but also kind of something that happened in the last year. In 2020, you guys released the Black Market like deluxe edition with like 3 extra songs, and I kind of want to get an insight into that because it was super cool but weird because you had already released like Wolves. It was like almost like backtracking an album cycle to be like, okay, also these are cool songs on this album. Kind of what went into like that mindset, and why did you release it when you did?
We it kind of came about because it was, I think, the 5th anniversary of Black Market at the time, and then we realized Escape Artist was never released in the States. I mean, you could probably find it on YouTube, at least not on like an actual release. It was on iTunes, um, but so we thought like let's put it on a physical copy of the record, and that way it'll draw some attention, and it also like kind of pass the time through the pandemic. It kind of made sense on all fronts. But yeah, the first and foremost, it was like, oh, we need to release Escape Artists in a cool way, for the United States. So, and then we played it live, or not live, but we did like a Instagram,
Yeah.
not a collaboration, but you know what I mean. We played
Yeah.
it our parts separately and then mixed it together on Instagram. We didn't do too much of that though as a band. Like we didn't want to fall down the rabbit hole because I think some bands do it and it's super cool, and then it could be overdone. And I think that trick gets a little old after a while. So we just thought we would do that and then kind of move on.
Yeah, no, I do agree with that. And I think also like when a band does like a live stream for the first time, like, oh my gosh, they're doing this live stream. Everybody tune in. Let's do it. Let's watch it. But then after like a band does a 10th, 12th live stream, it's like, I can miss that one. I've seen 3 of them already.
A
It does
hundred
start to
percent.
get a
Yep.
little old.
Absolutely.
Hmm. Now, when live shows return, do you think fans will be able to hear that song live?
You know what? We haven't discussed it because we're just now working out the set list for the tour for August. And it's tricky because now we have another record out, so it's like how many songs do we play off that record? I think so many of the songs off No Regeneration lend themselves to the live setting. I think it's going to be tough to pick and choose, and also we want to make sure we include the classics, of course. So it'll be tough, but it remains to be seen. we'll
Mhm.
we'll definitely consider it though.
Was that your intent when like writing No Regeneration? Because I agree 100% that like obviously the lyrics are super incredible and deep, but a lot of these songs feel like they're written for the stage, you know, and I think that's why a lot of fans are loving this record, is because almost every song is just like palpable with energy, you know, and we want to see that live.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of like, when we write, it's kind of whatever we're feeling for that moment, that in time basically. And when Tim and I kind of started getting together to show each other our ideas for songs, like my songs were kind of high energy, for the most part, and so were his. And we realized like, okay, like this record just by that nature is going to be high energy, front to back, or start to finish, I should say. Um, but it's never planned out, it just kind of worked out that way, because sometimes I'll get in a headspace where I'm writing long forgotten sons, or
Yeah.
blood to bleed or something like that. But this time it was like, yeah, like just let it rip. you know
No, yeah, I absolutely love that, where it's like just like the way you were naturally writing, it synced up so perfectly with, you know, that, oh, this is going to be an energetic record.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm. Now, when it comes to that songwriting process, another thing that I do want to touch upon and ask about is Rise Against, obviously known for being one of the most, you know, prolific, incredible punk bands of the last 20 years. But furthermore, your ballads are also really, really incredible and also have gained a lot of traction. You know, you got Hero of War, you know, you've got People Live Here. And on the new record, you've got that incredible song Forfeit. And I kind of want to ask because I love punk music, and this is no slander to punk artists, but sometimes when like other punk artists try to write ballads, it doesn't work like half as well as when you guys do that. And I want to know how you can almost get in that different sort of songwriting headspace when writing those slower, softer songs.
I mean, I think we see it as like a fresh start it's this, the same idea, the same song, but don't approach it like you would approach the electric version. We always try to put our heads in a the more like in that acoustic headspace. And I think that's why it works, because we look at it as like a different song basically. And I think the way we write, chord structures and all that, there's so much melody within the chords that we're choosing. Sometimes it's just power chords, but most times there's inversions, there's something more to it, and it really shines, in that acoustic setting. And I think that's what makes it just a little bit different. And then to add like, additional string instruments, obviously that definitely accentuates like all of that. So
Mm.
yeah, we just kind of come at it from a different approach.
That's a really cool answer, because you're right. Like, you know, you're not going to approach it the same way. You know, you're not going to start off with like, you know, four power chords and like one measure. You're going to like, okay, no, let's start writing this in like a more slower melodic kind of way.
Yeah. And I think we all draw from influences that have done that. Like I'm a huge fan of The Cure, and I know they strip it down. They have acoustic versions of their songs. I like approaching it from a more, I guess, a more emotional kind of side. So yeah, but yeah, to your point, I think that's why it works.
And I think just from like a track listing standpoint, it gives the album like a little bit of a breather. You know what I mean? Because if all the songs are
Yeah.
super fast, then like none of the songs are super fast. You know, it kind of makes you appreciate the moments a little more when it jumps right back in right after.
Oh yeah, for sure, definitely.
Mm. So now, another question. Obviously, you guys are touring with the Descendants and the Menzingers. For all of our New Jersey and New York listeners, July 30th, they're coming to New York at Rooftop Pier 17. And on July 31st, they're coming to the New Jersey Stone Pony Outdoors. Tell me a little bit about how excited you are for this tour, how you're feeling, what's going through your head.
I mean, it's such an insane lineup. I'm amazed that we actually got it together, because it's when you're booking three bands, usually the headliners, like they'll end up taking out smaller bands, right, to make it work financially. But like to have heavy hitters from start to finish is really insane. So we everyone just wanted it to work so bad, so we made adjustments all around. And the Menzingers, we toured with the Menzingers, I want to say on the end game tour, or maybe it was Wolves. They opened up our tour with A Day to Remember. And they're such good dudes, and they're such an amazing band. I'm a fan of that sound, pop punk, like, and they're really good at it. And the Descendants, I mean, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the Descendants. And Bill obviously is our producer, so that the fact that we can tour with one of our very good, well, all of those guys are our very good friends. and such an influence on Rise Against, and just it's just going to be a good hang, especially to coming back to it after being away for a year and a half. It's just going to feel like a little family reunion. But I mean, truly, like I wouldn't play bass the way I do if it wasn't for the Descendants. They were definitely like one of the big influences.
It's so cool. I love hearing you say that, because like, you're right. It's such a stacked lineup. I was telling my friend, it was like, you've got the Descendants, like the face of like late 90s, like late 80s, early 90s punk. And you've got Rise Against, the face of like 2000, 2010 punk. And then of course the Menzingers being the face of that 2010s pop punk scene. It's like these, almost like these punk juggernauts are like on this tour together. It was just such a cool lineup.
Yeah, for sure. You definitely get there early. I encourage everyone get there early, catch the Menzingers.
Definitely. So, my last question for you today. Thank you again so much for joining with us, talking with us. Um, you have recorded this new record at the Blasting Room in Fort Collins, and this is not the first record you've recorded there. So clearly,
Right.
something is awesome about that recording studio. What makes you come back there? What makes you to decide to keep writing records at that studio?
I mean, with Bill and Bill Stevenson and Jason Livermore producing, you know, that was the seventh record I think we recorded with Bill and Jason, or sixth or seventh, I think. Um, they know the band so well. They know what works for us, and they know if we're trying to add in something that maybe it's not quite up to snuff, like as far as like our standards, they're gonna call bullshit on it. They're not gonna, you know, walk on eggshells around us. But I mean, and not to mention Bill basically inventing pop punk with the Descendants and then playing in Black Flag, one of the best hardcore bands. Like he knows all facets of music. So he knows like every sound, every side of Rise Against. So it's just a really good fit. And we're really lucky. And with this record, Bill especially, Bill and Jason are both drummers, and they made sure the tempos of the songs were where they should be. And I think that's why there's this like high energy behind it, because they hear what's coming out of Tim's mouth, and you want to match the intensity of that with the tempo of the music.
Exactly. And you're so right that having a producer and a recording studio that knows the band because they've been with the band. They're not just like, oh, I
Yeah.
listened to the band's last four records. No, I worked with the band's last four records. They know how this evolution of sound is gonna go.
Yeah, totally.
Hmm. One more thing, real quick. I know we're running short on time, but I definitely have to ask you. I completely forgot almost. You're vegan, and
Yeah.
obviously in the punk scene, that is super, super important. That's super cool. I'm actually vegetarian right now. I'm in the process of going vegan. It's just I want to get your thoughts on a little bit of that, and obviously that in the punk scene slowly becoming more relevant, slowly becoming more of a way of life.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in 2021, there, especially like coming out of, well, we're not out of the pandemic, but as things start to return to normal, there were so many more um, healthy food options that sprung up right in 2020 and in the beginning of 2021 with like fast food chains. It's so easy to be vegan. There's so many options everywhere you look. Um, but for me, I mean, it really tackles so many issues, right? Being vegan, the environment, the treatment of animals, like the um, I guess just how we move through this world, everything affects one another. And I didn't realize that growing up. It's like, especially too, like I went vegetarian while we were recording our first record, and I didn't go vegan until Wolves record. So like it took a while, but then I
Mhm.
realized like how much it affects everything. And it really is important. And I really encourage people to check it out. Don't take my word for it. Look into it. And see what it does affect and how it affects the future, especially on the planet we live on.
Yeah, you're so right. It's like people either get in for the environment, for animal abuse, or for health. And
Yep.
that's like what people get in for. But once you start doing it, you realize, oh, it actually helps all facets of, oh, you know what I mean? Like everyone has a
Yep.
different entry point, but it's always the same goal, which is super, super cool.
Absolutely.
Well, again, Joe, thank you so much for talking with me today. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. No Regeneration available now on the Rise Against merch store, Spotify, or you could hear it on WSOU 89.5 FM. We've been playing it nonstop. Thank you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Take care.